Welcome to this video, which introduces the spelling rules for adding affixes to words. This information comes from the Reading Teacher's Book of Lists, 6th edition by Cress and Fry, list 134, which can be found on pages 384 and 385. So first of all, why is it important that students know these rules? Well, knowing these rules will help students to encode words more efficiently when they're writing, because they'll be able to apply each rule to multiple words. So in order to support students in understanding these rules, it's most effective to focus on one rule or pattern at a time, and to provide students with many opportunities to play with words that use that rule or pattern in them. So the first rule that we'll discuss is when adding a suffix to a word or a word root, the suffix will not change, but the word or the word root may change its spelling. So, for example, like, when you make it liking, you will drop the E and just add the ing. Or mate plus ed, mated, you drop the E in mate and add that ed. In many cases, to add a suffix to a word, you just do it. No spelling changes are needed, such as bat to bats, talk to talking, and small to smallest. This also applies when a root word ends with a consonant and the suffix begins with a consonant, such as helpful and thinly, in which in helpful you have the ending with the P, the consonant, and beginning with the F, which is also a consonant. If you're looking at a single syllable word that ends with a single consonant and the suffix begins with a vowel, you're going to double the consonant and then add the suffix, unless that final consonant is a W or an X. So, for example, run plus ing, you're going to double the N to have running, running. However, with box, because it ends with an X, to make boxy, you're just going to add a Y. If a word ends with two consonants, don't double the final consonant before adding the suffix, just add it. So bend, which ends with that ND, two consonants in a row. To make bending, you're just going to add the ing. Same with calm, ends with LM. To add the ly, you're just going to do it to make calmly. The sixth rule in the Book of Lists talks about words that have a double vowel within them and end in a consonant. When you're working with these words, then you don't double the final consonant before adding the suffix. So, for example, the word sheet, to make it plural, sheets, you just add an S. Fleet, to add ing, just do it, fleeting. Drained, we have the AI followed by the consonant N. To make drained, just add an ED. If a word ends in C, we typically add a K before any suffix that begins with the vowels E, I, or Y. We do this because of the hard and soft C rule. If we did not add the K and we just added that E, I, or Y, then according to that soft C generalization, the C would go from making the K sound to the S sound, which in these words it doesn't. And so adding the K helps the C to keep its hard sound. So panic plus Y, if we just added the Y without the K, it would go from panicky to actually, according to the generalization, panacy, which is not a word. So the K helps us to keep that hard C. The same with trafficking. Rule 8 is all about the emphasis in the word. So if a word is accented on its final syllable, so the emphasis is on that final syllable, and it ends with a single consonant, so we have a vowel consonant ending, then you double the consonant before adding the affix. So for example, in the word begin, you'll notice that when you say the word, the emphasis is on the second syllable, the gin. And because that syllable is the one where the emphasis is, or is accented, then when we add ing, we're going to double that final N in begin to make beginning. The same with commit to commitment. We're going to double that final T because the second syllable is the one that is accented. If a word ends with the silent or magic E, we drop that E before adding a suffix that begins with a vowel, but not before a suffix that ends with a consonant. So for example, taking, we drop the E and add the ing, or poke, to poked, we add the ed after dropping that first E. However, in careful, because full begins with a consonant, an F, we do not drop that magic E, we actually keep it. So that careful is spelled C-A-R-E-F-U-L. If a word ends with an E that's not the magic E, then you're going to keep the E and add the suffix. So for example, fleeing, F-L-E-E-I-N-G, or Eiffel, E-Y-E-F-U-L. If a word ends in a consonant and Y, then just like with any other affix, you're going to change the Y to I and add the suffix. So if the word ends in a vowel plus Y, you'll keep the Y and add the suffix. So happiness, you've got the consonant and Y, the P and the Y, so you change the Y to I and add the suffix. Marrying, however, because it's an ing, which is an exception to the rule, you actually keep the Y and add the ing, because otherwise you would have two I's in a row, which in English we do not do. However, married, because the ed doesn't begin with an I, you will still drop that Y and change it to I. If a word ends in LE and the suffix that you're adding is LY, then you drop the final LE before the suffix. So the word able, A-B-L-E, when you add the LY, you drop the LE altogether, and that gives you ably, A-B-L-Y. The same with terrible. Adding LY, you'll drop the LE at the end to get terribly. So take just a moment. You can pause the video and practice how would each of the following words be spelled if we took the root word that I've given you and the suffix that I've added, and why would it be spelled this way. Alright, so hopefully you've tried that out and have these spelled out and understand why you spelled them the way you did. Let's look at the answers. So childish, we have the root child, and then we just add the ISH. There's no change to that root at all, so it's one of those first easy ones where we just add it. Fake plus ing, faking, we have to drop that silent E and then add the suffix ing. Pot plus er, potter, we will double the final consonant in a CVC word before a suffix with a vowel. And finally, bumpy plus we change the Y to I before a suffix beginning with a vowel. So we get bumpier, B-U-M-P-I-E-R. So hopefully this has been helpful. Come to class with any questions you may have about the content in this video, and be prepared as always to work with this material in class to get a deeper understanding. As always, thank you for watching.